Is This a Great Game or What? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kirkshin. I'm his son, Jeff Kirkshin. And, Dad, this is the most exciting time of the baseball season this week right here.
Right, Jeff. Pennant races are great. Wild card races are tremendous. MVP, Cy Young races. It's the best week of the regular season. There's no way around this. And we are spending the most important week of the regular season at the beach. I went to the Harris Teeter here the other day to get groceries for the family. And a guy comes up to me. I'm in there for like 30 seconds. A guy comes up to me, doesn't even say hello, and just says, shouldn't you be at a game? And I'd been on the island for like an hour, and that's the first thing anybody says to me. I feel so bad about this. But, Jeff, explain. The fathers who are here, and now the grandfather, including me, we've been coming here for 50 years. It's our family vacation. Agreed?
50 years. 5 best friends from elementary school have been going to the Outer Banks, and it's just such an important trip. And, you know, when you're dealing with 5 families, right, that now becomes 32 people in one house because fathers became grandfathers. There's a ton of kids running around, so you try to find the best time for everybody. And guess who had the last vote on when the best time for everybody was? Old Tim and Jeff Kirkshin over here. So we brought our travel equipment with us. We're doing the podcast, Dad, in a movie theater that's in the basement of this place,
which is not a house; it's a hotel. It sleeps like 45 people, right? And how many
insane.
Do we have at the top here? We have 30,
I
25?
think when we have the most amount of people, I think I did the math. I think it's 32. I think at the peak of everybody being here.
Right.
So we're just so happy to be here, and we're keeping up with you. We've got a great interview tomorrow with Kevin Brown. We'll get to that in a little bit. So the podcast will still go off as usual Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. You'll just see or hear us from beautiful Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina.
Right. And in the spirit of where we are, Jeff, we're gonna elevate the team Tim. We usually put it at the end of the episode. Right. We're gonna bring it up to the top because we're at the beach. So I haven't told you this. What do you think the theme is for this week? It's fairly obvious.
The beach.
The all-beach team. Okay, we're going to start with our pitching staff because the pitchers are best represent the all-beach team. Our first pitcher is Matt Beach. How about that? We've got Ernie Shore.
Perfect.
We've got Doc Ellis, who
Excellent.
you used on the all-dental team, and I had to tell you, wait, we're going to need him next week for the all-beach team. Bobby C., spelled S-E-A-Y. Stephen Shell.
Great.
S-H-E-L-L, and Sun Woo Kim. So those are the 6 pitchers that we chose. We could have picked a lot more, but I got to keep it to 6. All right, Chris Coast is our catcher.
Perfect.
This is where it gets a little repetitive, but you know, Jeff, you can't repeat names no matter what. Those are the rules of Team Tim.
Real quick, go through your pitchers again in with your eyes and tell me, blank to Coast, what would be the best pitcher catcher? Sun Coast?
Sun Coast, yeah.
Right. That might be the best one.
Right. Sea Coast, right. Shore Coast, no. Right.
I think
Sun
to Coast,
I like
yeah.
it. All right. Jerry Sands is the first baseman.
Yep.
Jackson Holiday, you know.
You're on holiday.
Uncle Craig in Toronto calls it a holiday. We call it a vacation. Same idea. Heine Sand. So we've had Jack Sands. Heine Sand is our shortstop. And again, we're really pushing it here. Sandy Alomar Sr., Sandy, is our third baseman, even though he was mostly a second baseman. And our 3 outfielders, Drew Waters, Champ Summers, and Chuck Tanner. I looked for a guy named Tan, but I couldn't find him. So Chuck Tanner is going to have to do. That, Jeff, is the all-beach team.
Well done. And I want to give a shout out to one lovely couple we go to the beach with every year, Tim and Kim Daly. They listen to the podcast and or watch on YouTube every single week, Dad. And Kim looked at me and said, it brings me so much joy. I'm like the crazy woman walking through my neighborhood, laughing hysterically, listening to the podcast. And then she hits me with, I don't understand half the things you're talking about, but boy, is it fun.
Well, that's good. And Tim Daly, Kim's husband, also goes by Pop Pop. So his real name is Tim, like mine. His grandfather name is Pop Pop. So the number of times I've turned because someone is calling for Pop Pop, but they're not calling for me.
Or Tim.
Well, yeah. Three kids call me Pop Pop, and there's 7 kids here that call him Pop Pop. So it's been a little confusing, but it's been great.
Yeah, if multiple times when you two have been together, I just go pop, 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 pop.
Right.
Because all 4 pops are taken care of there.
Right, absolutely.
All right, Dad. Well, let's jump into the takeaways across Major League Baseball. There is so much happening right now.
Yeah, and we have to go back a few days because it was that important.
Yeah.
Friday night, Clayton Kershaw pitched what will be his final regular season game at Dodger Stadium. And it was an amazing event. Of course, let's understand who Clayton Kershaw is, Jeff. He's the best active pitcher. He's the best pitcher of this generation. And with all due respect to Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, who are first ballot Hall of Famers, the best pitcher of this era that we're in right now is Clayton Kershaw. He has the lowest ERA, Jeff, of any pitcher since 1920 live ball era with at least 2,500 innings pitched.
Wow.
And the key is, Jeff, he has been great this year. This isn't a swan song and he's going out on the bottom. He's going out on top. And now we can only hope for his sake and for the Dodgers' sake that they have a great postseason. But they finished with a wonderful, wonderful tribute to Clayton Kershaw. And so my cousin, your aunt, Julie Schvodian, Julie was there, and Julie Townsend, her married name. And she must have texted me 5 times during the night. And one was just, I can't stop crying, is what she wrote. I mean, that's how important this was. And Jeff, again, not to be corny about this, but he's pitched his entire career for the Dodgers. He is one of the greatest pitchers in Dodger history. Maybe only Sandy Koufax was better, and that's debatable. And he's such a good guy that when he retired, like the final night, people came back, who hadn't played with him in years. Austin Barnes, one of his catcher, came back. Matthew Stafford, the quarterback, came because he grew up in the same neighborhood and went to the same high school as Clayton Kershaw. So this is why baseball is such a beautiful sport, is we didn't just send off such a great pitcher. We sent off such a great guy, and that was really nice. Oh, Jeff, and let me finish. Let's see how well you can finish remember the anagram that I use for Clayton Kershaw. There are 2 ways to use it. What's the anagram of Clayton Kershaw's name? Now that he became, against the Giants in that game, he became the all-time strikeout leader against the Giants, passing Warren Spahn. So there's a hook to this ridiculous anagram that I came up with.
Cy Hero wants K.
Right. L.A.
Cy Hero wants K.
Jeff, I'm very proud of you.
L.A. K Hero wants Cy.
Yes.
I always forget the L.A. in there. Yeah,
that's all right. Jeff, that was really good. You can remember that. I've only used it like 10 times.
I really am a slow to remember these things, but when you repeat them, I could repeat every line from Get Smart at this point because we use them so many times.
And wait till we have Jeremy Schaap on the air.
We'll Jeremy Schaap.
Right. That's
next
in 2
week.
weeks.
That's next week. A week from tomorrow on the podcast. Wow.
But make sure you tune in for Kevin Brown tomorrow.
Broadcaster for the Baltimore Orioles.
Hilariously funny.
So great.
A brilliant broadcaster, and does the greatest Jim Palmer impersonation I've ever seen. Jeff, have you and I laughed that consistently hard at the same time than when Kevin Brown did Jim Palmer?
It's that and Aaron Boone's impressions, laughing that hard. That was last year. This season, I don't think you and I have laughed as hard than we did at that moment.
All right, very good.
Can I also say that Aunt Julie, did she miss an important game?
No.
Wasn't she at the Kobe 86-point game?
81-point
game?
Yeah, her and her son, Brett. And Brett, her son, my nephew, I went to his wedding last year. He's caught like 10 foul balls at a game. Then he goes to an obscure Laker game, and Kobe goes for 81. And then they show up, and Ohtani does these amazing things. Yep. So Julie is a good luck charm. So if she keeps going to the games, the Dodgers have a chance to do something really good. All right, staying on the West Coast, Mike Trout finally hit his 400th home run.
Mike Trout.
Now, let's be clear, Jeff. Mike Trout is hitting in the 220s this year, and he's not the player he used to be, and he's had injury issues. But let's still be clear. He's one of the greatest players we've ever seen. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. The amazing thing to me is, and Bill Chuck pointed this out for us, Bill Chuck from Billy Ball, we love Bill, that when Trout got to 400, he had 200 homers at home and 200 homers on the road. So Neil Ayervois, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, Neil, but he also texted us, to Great Game or What, that when Fred McGriff and Jason Giambi got to 400 homers, they each had 200 at home, 200 on the road. Now, I didn't check with Frank on the Elias. Well, I could have checked that in 5 minutes by myself, but that's not the point. We have people calling in on these things. And what did you got an email from somebody on
Yeah,
this,
John
right?
Woodward, member of the family, always messaging with us. Francisco Lindor hit a home run on Sunday for the Mets. In his career, he has 276 home runs, 138 with Cleveland and 138 with the New York Mets, 138 at home, and 138 on the road.
Jeff, that is so bizarre.
I mean, John Woodward
thank
found
you.
that one.
That guy is all
huge.
over this.
He is. He really
People
is.
are so helpful who are emailing us because they have critical information.
Isn't it great when we don't have to do as much prep because they do it for us?
I'm out on the beach and they're looking up 200 and 200, so good for them.
Stop burying yourself in the sand. You're okay.
I feel terrible about that.
I know
now,
you
Lindor,
do.
of course, plays for the Mets, and at this sitting, at the moment we are taping this on Monday, the Mets would not make the playoffs, which is just inconceivable. Jeff, in the middle of June, they had the best record in baseball. They were 21 games over 500. So the last team to not make the playoffs when they were at least 21 games over 500, I thought it was further back than this, but the Indians, Guardians, whatever we're calling them, 2019 were the last team to do that. And Jeff, this is amazing also. The Tigers might not make the playoffs also, because now they're in a fight to win the division, and if they don't win the division, they might not win a wild card because they just got swept at home, 6-game series, first time since 2019. The Tigers were 25 games over 500. So there are two teams this year, 21 over and 25 over, in theory, who might not make the playoffs. It just shows you, Jeff, what we were saying right at the beginning, how great this last week of the season is. I mean, we're not rooting for bad things like this, but this is some mild history being made. And, you know, the Mets fans are going to be outraged if they don't make the playoffs after being 21 games over, because the Reds are tied with them as of Monday morning, and the Reds own the tiebreaker over the Mets.
And 9 of the last 10 games the Guardians have won. 9 of the last 10 games Detroit has lost. And 9 of the last 10 games Seattle has won as well. So we're seeing this is the time to go on a run, and they took over the division from the Astros. This is what makes this time so exciting.
Right, and in this taping, the Mariners had won 14 out of 15 to take a 3-game lead in the division, which is amazing. And if the Guardians come back and win the division, because they were 15 and a half games back, they will set the record for the furthest amount back to come back and win a division or a league. How about that? That's what we're talking about.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that clubhouse has really turned around. And, you know, at the trade deadline, you kind of looked at both Seattle and Cleveland, and you were like, are they not really, you know, what's going to happen here?
Both out multiple times. Again, this is the beauty of baseball, Jeff, but this is the biggest beauty of 2025, just how unpredictable it has been.
And I don't want to throw you, but also the Diamondbacks. We all thought that, what is going on? They're a game out of the wild card.
We talked about them last week also. They traded at the, they didn't acquire, they traded
sellers
at the trade deadline, and here they're coming back. Torey Lovello, a great job that he's done.
All right, Dad, should we jump into the questions?
Yes. So this was pointed out by several people, including me. We had a 3-8-6 force out the other day. And people were asking me, have you ever seen anything quite like this? And I don't think I have. So the Reds are playing the Cubs. Pete Crow Armstrong is at the plate. He hits a line drive that hits off the first baseman's mitt of Spencer Steer. What's the lesson on mitts and gloves, Jeff?
Only catchers and first basemen have mitts. Everybody
Because
else
they
wears
don't
a glove.
have what?
They don't have the fingers.
Fingers, right. So
A
everyone
mitt,
else
so if
is
you put
wearing a
mittens
glove.
on,
right, exactly.
in the winter, you don't have fingers. If you have gloves on,
So it hits off Spencer Steer's mitt. It then hits the runner, and then the ball goes into center field, and TJ Friedel in center field picks up the ball and throws Moises Ballesteros out at second. So Pete Crow Armstrong hits a rocket to first, doesn't get a hit out of it. The ball actually hits the ground, still doesn't get a hit out of it because Ballesteros is forced out at second. So Pete Crow Armstrong gets no hit on that. It goes as a 3-8-6 force out. How weird is that?
that is very strange.
And how weird is this? The Royals beat the Blue Jays 20-1 in a game just the other day, of course. And earlier this year, the Blue Jays beat the Rockies 20-1. So the Blue Jays won a game and lost a game by 19 runs in the same season. So I called Frank from the Elias. He's so helpful. The 2018 Mets and the 2018 Phillies are the only teams ever to win a game by 19 and lose a game by 19 or more in the same season. So it's only been done 2 other times, and it was done in the same year, 2018, and the Mets that year beat the Phillies in one of those games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's weird. But no team has ever played 20-1 is kind of an interesting score, right? So,
yeah.
So no team has ever won a game and lost a game by the exact 20-1 score in the history of
That's
baseball.
crazy.
Yeah.
And we're saying in the history of baseball, which is currently running at 794 years old.
Right.
Think about that. That's
Right.
how long the game's been around. At
Right.
least it feels that long.
Right. Okay. So in that game, the Royals got 27 hits. I was surprised by this. And the Blue Jays got 3. So they got out hit by 24 hits in a game. The last time any team did that was in 94. The Phillies scored 28 more runs than the Louisville Colonels. 94, Jeff. Now, what's the answer to that?
The Colonels?
Right.
What about them?
1894.
Oh, 18, of course. The Louisville Colonels, as we know.
Right.
Where there were still Civil War colonels alive.
Right.
The colonels were playing.
Right. And we have a note that goes all the way back to that. All right. Speaking of the Phillies, Taijuan Walker. Phillies are your team now, Jeff. Okay.
Yeah, we've adopted them.
Right. Taijuan Walker started, and a newcomer came in to relieve him. Do you remember who the brand new pitcher, the veteran pitcher that they just
Walker Buehler?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Taijuan Walker was followed by Walker Buehler. Right. Not the most unusual thing. My favorite one on all these was when the Blue Jays had a bullpen that included David Bush and Brandon League. And multiple times, David Bush was relieved by Brandon League. So we had the Bush League bullpen. We love that.
That's Bush League.
Right. And last thing, Jeff, Aaron Judge drew his 100th intentional walk of his career. All of them, of course, with the Yankees. Now, we started charting officially intentional walks in 1955. So the only 2 Yankees that have had more intentional walks in their career, so this doesn't include Ruth or Gehrig or DiMaggio. Don Mattingly had 136, and Mickey Mantle had 126, and now Judge has his 100th intentional walk. All right, now let's see if you can remember the amazing statistic about Barry Bonds. Just give me a rough idea. How many intentional walks Barry Bonds had in his career? Now, again, played his whole career since we've been charting. Right. Just take a guess, Jeff. 688.
I was going to say 350. Wow.
688.
Didn't he have 100 in a season?
Yes. 2004, Jeff, he had 120
Wow.
In one season, 2004. So Aaron Judge...
For people who might not know, Dad, give a rough estimate, roughly, of how many at-bats, how many plate appearances an everyday player would have in a season.
Well, if you
roughly
600.
600. So 120 in a season.
So basically 1 out of 4 times, a little bit more.
1 out of 5.
1 out of 5
1
times.
out of 5 times.
He gets intentionally walked, not walked.
Think about that.
No one in the American League walked 120 times that season. Walked. Intentionally, unintentionally combined. So that just shows you who Barry Bonds is. And as great as Aaron Judge is, and we don't intentionally walk people today, Jeff, like we used to, but it's pretty amazing.
Even though it's easier to do these days
Barry
than ever.
Bonds had 20 more in one season than Aaron Judge has had in his career. It just shows you how amazing it is what Barry Bonds did.
Coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? We've got On This Date in Baseball History. Dad brought some cards from the bathroom.
Yes, we'll explain.
We'll explain more. And then I finally, 1 week late, have my Team Jeff that I have created, and hopefully it lives up to your standard, Dad. We'll find out. It's all coming up next. Welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? We are recording in a movie theater in the basement of a beach house in Outer Banks, North Carolina. Dad, give your little disclaimer before. Can you give your disclaimer again?
No, I'm not doing it again. I've already apologized 10 times.
Okay.
I've already acknowledged my guilt. In this room last night, this is why coming to the beach matters. I watched the movie Coco for the first time.
You watched Coco?
I'd never seen
Dad, I've been telling you to watch that. Did you watch the whole thing?
I did.
And you cried?
Out loud.
Out loud.
Out loud.
Dad, I watched that movie. My wife, Emily was dog sitting for this one family, right? This was right when we started dating. And I went over in the morning, and the night before, we had started watching Coco, but then I had to go, so we cut it off halfway through. And then I got there in the morning to pick her up, and she was like, I'm getting ready. And I said, I'm going to finish this movie. I watched the final 30 minutes, and we had just started going out, and I am bawling my eyes out on a stranger's couch while my then girlfriend, who I don't know that well at this point, is getting ready for our day. And I am just bawling my eyes out. So for those who don't know, it's a story about the Mexican tradition of the afterlife, right? And keeping their memory alive. And it all kind of centers around this little boy. But the little boy's great-grandmother, Coco, she has Alzheimer's or dementia of some sort, and she is having trouble remembering her father's memory. And there's a whole backstory as to that. But...
I watched it, Jeff, with Carson, my 4-year-old grandson, sitting right in front of me. And he came back and sat in my lap briefly. And after it was over, we walked back to Kelly's room, my daughter's room, your sister's room. And Carson told us what happened. And he said to Kelly, that reminded me of Nana and Pop. Which is my mother and father. Carson knew that.
Yeah.
He's 4 years old.
Well, and, my grandmother, my dad's mom, moved in with us when I was 15 years old. And she went through dementia and Alzheimer's. And that story was just so... It was just so emotional. Right. It's so close to home.
A 4-year-old connecting the dots there and recognizing that Pop has something to do with this movie because his mom is Nana and his dad was Pop. How about that?
Dad, I'm telling you.
So
how many years have I told you to watch that movie?
I know.
And I'm so glad you did.
I didn't know we were watching it. They said we're watching a movie, so I took over. All right.
You're just
I'm going to start to cry
un poco loco. I love that movie. The music in the movie is great. Okay.
This date in baseball history, Chuck Klein, Phillies right fielder, recorded his 44th outfield assist. So 1930, that was the first year that we had a 40-40 guy. 40 homers, 40 outfield assists. Now, no one counts those things, but the interesting part about that, the first 40-40 guy in Major League history was Jose Canseco, 40 homers, 40 steals, the more traditional 40-40, and he got to 40-40 on this date in 1988. So 58 years after Chuck Klein he was already a 40-40 guy, Jose Canseco became the first official 40-40 guy in Major League history. And this is amazing too, Jeff. Speaking of 200, okay, on this date in 1990, Gary Gaetti hit his 200th Major League home run. And he hit it off of Charlie Huff. 9 years, 4 days earlier, Gary Gaetti hit his first homer. And who do you think he hit it off?
No.
Charlie Huff.
He's got his number.
How great is that?
That is so crazy.
Yeah, and I was at the one when he hit the one off of Charlie Huff, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, and on this, we have a couple of birthdays. This date in 1952, Jim Morrison was born. Pretty good Major League infielder. He could hit, not Jim Morrison, get this, from the Doors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How about that? Pop.
Way to go, Dad.
Musical reference. Jim Morrison, loved Jim Morrison, but he's the one that got ambidextrous and amphibious mixed up. So he said, oh, that guy's amphibious. And then I'm not sure if he was joking, but he said, I think he can throw underwater, which is not the definition of, right. All right, 1969, Jeff Cirillo was born, really good hitter for the Brewers and then for the Rockies. He was a really good hitter. And if you get this, I've told you this multiple times, I'll give you $1,000. Jeff Cirillo went to the All-Star game the first time and
got on the wrong plane. He said, hey, aren't you Jeff Cirillo? He said, yeah. And he goes, aren't you playing for the All-Star game? And he goes, yeah. He says, well, this plane's going to New York. You got to go to Cleveland,
That's
right?
exactly right, Jeff. You're actually listening to all of my stupid stories. And all you need is a brief clue. All right,
Jeff Cirillo, poor Jeff Cirillo, was so excited to just get recognized on the plane.
Aren't you Jeff Cirillo?
So his highest moment was led by his lowest
moment.
Go
to the All-Star game? He goes, yes. Well, it's in Cleveland. This plane's going to New York. Yes, I've told that story probably too many times.
I know, but it finally locked in.
If you get this one, I'm not kidding.
I'm on a high right now for remembering Jeff Cirillo.
I'll give you $1 million if you can get this story. The story I have, 1966, Pete Harnisch was born. Former Major League pitcher, went to Fordham, played for the Orioles, Astros, Reds, a few others. Pete Harnisch. I'm going to give you a giant clue. How did he earn extra money in college?
Pete Harnisch. He didn't cut hair.
He went to Fordham. So that's a downtown New York college.
I don't remember what he did, Dad.
Good. You just saved me $1 million. To make extra money in college, or somebody, Pete Harnisch, I love this, used to appear in police lineups.
Oh, that's right.
So he would go in like at 11 o'clock at night and face the camera and then face the other way. As he told me, he said $30 for a regular case, $50 for a murder case. Can't make this stuff up.
No, that's so. It's like there's so many great side hustles. I know my father-in-law. He gave plasma all the time, and he would use that as money to go join his pickleball league or whatever it might be. Getting in a police lineup though, and maybe being wrongly accused of murder. I don't know if I'm doing that.
$50 for a murder case. Oh, I love it. It's so good. All right, Jeff. We have a new feature we've only used once. I have to explain it. 3 coins and a fountain is a famous song. Steve Martin sings it, others, of course. So I was going through the bathroom at home in the basement the other day, and there's a stack of baseball cards. There must be 300 of them in the bathroom. So I just reached in and picked out 3. So this is the new segment we're going to do at least once a week.
You know what's also in that bathroom?
In the bathroom, what?
Is a picture of Cal Ripken's 2131 taken on my wife's actual birthday.
Right.
We learned that the hard way.
Have you told Emily that we forgot as we did this Cal Ripken podcast that she was actually born that? Was she offended?
Guess how much she cared?
Not at all.
Not much. She said, Jeff, great. Can you go pick that up for me? I said, okay. No, she thought it was crazy too. And then I talked to her parents about it, and they said, yeah, we were a little occupied having twins that day. Right. So I understand.
Okay, understood. Okay.
And they're San Diego people. They're Tony Gwynn through and through. They're San Diego Padre fans. That's what they love.
Okay, all right. 3 cards in a fountain, Jeff, okay? These are the 3 that I picked out. I mean, I didn't go through 20 and say, let me pick out 3 that I can tell a story about. These these are the 3 cards I picked. Now, the first one involves a swear word, but we're going to have to bleep it out. But the first one is Ron Oster. Ron Oster was a good second baseman for the Reds for several years. But one year, he didn't draw a whole lot of walks. And one year, he had a really long stretch without drawing a walk. And one of the writers went to him and said, Ron, you don't walk very often. It's been X number of at-bats since you walked. And he looked at him, and Ron Oster's a great dude, but he says, if I wanted to walk, I would have been a fucking postman, okay? Pretty good comeback line.
That's great.
We'll bleep it out. You get the idea.
It's bleeped.
Sometimes the F word must be used. Okay?
I remember when I was younger, your second book. What year did your second book? 2004? Does that sound right?
I forget.
Ish. Okay. Around 2004. So I was 10 or 11 years old, and I remember reading it and you quoting baseball players or managers saying bad words, F words, and so because you're right, Dad, you're a journalist.
Sometimes it is important to the sentence.
And I remember because I had never heard you curse at that point because
I wasn't. I was quoting somebody.
I know. Well, that's what you explained to me. You said, Jeffrey, I didn't say the word. I was quoting somebody else say it, and then our dog ate your baseball glove, and then I heard you say multiple curse words. All back to back to back to back.
That was bad. Again, the F word is important only in important times, for
emphasis or pain.
Right. And nobody uses the F word better than Al Pacino, better than him. And sometimes you just have to use it. All right, enough of that because we don't do
Crawl with your fingernails for that inch.
Right. It's the difference between
winning and losing. Between living and dying.
It's a great movie. It was a great speech. Wasn't a great movie.
I know. The last guy who should be, just looking at him as a football coach, he didn't even look like a football coach.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, second one is Dante Bichette. Member of the Angels. That's where he started his career. Of course, went on to the Rockies and had he had some great years with the Rockies. Of course, he's the dad of Bo Bichette. And I remember I was doing a story for Sports Illustrated on Dante Bichette, and I was kind of following him around for a little while. So I said, where are you going after the game? And he goes, I'm going to a Matchbox car, fair.
Like a collector's thing?
And he says, I love Matchbox cars. It's a major league player who just got 3 hits and hit a homer in a major league game. And he went to a Matchbox card display and bought a bunch of cars.
Dad, this is refreshing because you hear stories like Dante Bichette, great Major League Baseball player, Keith Hernandez, who should be a Hall of Famer, playing Stratomatic by himself. These, just because they play the game doesn't mean they aren't as nerdy as we are when it comes to certain things.
It really personalizes these guys.
Yeah.
But I remember more in doing that story with Dante Bichette. This is in the middle of his great years with the Rockies. He looked at me and he was dead serious. He goes, every day that I come to the ballpark, I wonder, is today the last day that I'll be able to hit in the big leagues? That's how hard the skill is, Jeff. And maybe this was just his defense mechanism to just make sure he showed up and not take this for granted. But he really believed it. Today might be the last day that I'll be able to hit in the big league, so I better make the best of it. Do you really think a great NBA jump shooter ever goes to the arena in his prime and says, boy, I hope I can make it 3 tonight? And nothing against NBA three-point shooters. Very few people love basketball as much as I do. I understand the science and the philosophy of shooting a basketball. It's 2 things in the world I understand. But I'm telling you, the degree of difficulty of baseball is what makes Dante Bichette go to the ballpark and say, is today the last day I'll be able to hit in the big league?
Who was the player who was on a really, really bad streak and said, I didn't think I was ever going to get a hit again?
That was Frank Robinson.
Yeah.
Second year in the major leagues. Frank Robinson might be the most confident hitter I've ever met in my life. And after one of the great rookie years ever, he told me he was 0 for 25 his second year. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't think I was ever going to get another hit.
And that's real life.
That's real life. Right. That's and Jeff
Mr.
Cirillo,
President, you have no idea.
Right. And Jeff Cirillo, I mentioned earlier, I love that guy, but he was a little too hard on himself, and this is a compliment, but he would go 4 for 5 in a game, which he did more than once, and he would fret about the out that he made. Instead of saying, heck, I got 4 knocks today, he would fret like, what happened in that 5th at bat? This is the difference. This is why these guys are as great as they are.
Well, that's why I felt bad for Kyle Schwarber when he only hit 4 homers.
Right.
And he was facing a position player on the final one, and he popped out to the shortstop, and all he was thinking was, how did I not hit that one out of the... You hit 4 homers, Schwarber. It's okay.
Real pitchers, right. All right, speaking of real pitchers, the last one is Joaquin Andujar, one of my favorite pitchers that I ever covered over the years, pitched in the 82 World Series. He was a funny guy. He famously said once, and I use something like this all the time, what makes baseball is you just have no idea what's going to happen next.
Right.
So he said, you can sum up baseball in one word. You never know. So people explained, well, that's actually 3 words, Joaquin. And he said, you know what I mean. You never know. So back then we used to say baseball, you never know in one word. We love it.
That's so special.
Joaquin Andujar. All right, we talked about Jim Palmer earlier today. What is one of Jim Palmer's great claims to fame? Pitched almost 4,000 innings and
never gave up a grand slam.
Right. Joaquin Andujar pitched over 2,000 innings, never gave up a grand slam, but he hit one.
Wow.
Think about that. Gary Peters, another pitcher from way back, pitched 2,000 innings and never gave up a grand slam, but he hit one. I mean, again, Jeff, how did we explain that? Only in baseball can that happen.
You know, Dad, one day, if I continue this baseball podcast beyond you being here, these statistics about pitchers batting for our children are going to be so foreign. It's going to be, I mean, Jeff, what is the comparison, Dad? There is no comparison in baseball because the game, I mean, it's like live ball, dead ball era, right? The mound. That's maybe the only comparison because in 30, 40 years from now, when I'm talking to my great-grandkids about baseball and I say, well, you know those guys? They used to hit. I have a feeling it's going to come back. I genuinely do.
It does because I wrote a story, 4 years ago, whenever we gave up pitchers hitting. And I said, I'm sorry, we're going to miss this because so many cool things happen in between all the strikeouts and the non-competitive at-bats that we get from pitchers. We get a grand slam from Joaquin Andujar, a grand slam from Gary Peters, or Bartolo Colon home run. I mean, those are unforgettable things.
Or an expertly crafted bunt.
Right.
When a pitcher would lay down a great sack bunt or even a bunt for a hit,
right.
It's baseball magic.
Yeah,
so
I think that stuff's important. Okay, Jeff, speaking of magic, we're on to the end of this podcast here from the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So I am really curious what you came up with for the team Tim, which we will call the team Jeff. Jeff, no matter how good or bad this is, we need to do it because we teased it. And if you teased it, I'm sure there are people all over the country breathlessly waiting to see what Jeff came up with.
All right. So, Dad, I've come up with a team Jeff. I gave you the tease that this was all about my life in high school. And you hit the nail on the head. You said...
I was right.
It's a theater team. Now, I started off by doing it like things at the theater, in a musical, in a production. And then I quickly pivoted because I couldn't find anything. So then I turned towards the all-theater production team. So each one of these players, their names lends itself to a theater musical or a play. Are you ready?
Oh, the name of the play?
So, and I apologize if I mispronounce any names, Dad. Hopefully you can help me out with this.
I will hopefully be able to help you out with it.
A catcher, Bye Birdie Tebbetts.
Oh my God. Birdie Tebbetts was he worked for the Rangers. He was a scout for the Rangers.
When you started out?
Yeah.
Really?
And I got to know him really well.
This is a great start.
Yeah, fascinating man who was a really good hitter in his day, managed in the major leagues, and this is incredibly self-serving, Jeff. But he came up to me one day. I'm in spring training. I'm wearing shorts, and he looks at me and he goes, you got to run his legs like that. And
That's who said that to you. I've heard you say that to me.
No. I was so honored that a guy who is a scout and is looking at body types, he could tell an athlete a million miles away, just looked at me and goes, you have runner's, he had a Boston, you have runner's legs. I was so thrilled.
That is, look at that. Well, the next one's going to insult you, but there's a reason why I had to do this, and I know you've done it before in Team Tim. I had to put a third baseman as my first baseman. He did play first base.
Well, then it's okay.
Not very often, but occasionally. He's not known.
I had Robert Brush, who played one game at first base on the all-dental team.
Well, this guy is a little bit better known than Robert Brush. Sundays in the Park with George Brett. Because I had him as my third baseman.
All right.
And I know that's a stretch, but it's a great musical. Sundays in the Park with...
People ask all the time, why didn't you use this famous player? Well, I needed a first baseman or I needed a third baseman. I'm not trying to come up with the perfect team. I'm just trying to get someone at each position.
Okay, second base is Jose Caballero. Caballero.
Okay.
Stretch for sure.
All right. If you grew up like I did, you would remember that Greg Cadare, Cadaret, left-handed pitcher, pitched in the big leagues for several years.
Yeah.
You could have used
him on my pitching staff.
Right.
I needed a second baseman. Yeah. I'm dead. Wait until you see this one. Third is Hello Dolly Stark, who played in the early 1900s.
Dolly Stark?
Yeah, Dolly Stark. Hello, Dolly. That's what I
love it.
What I went for.
Right.
Shortstop, I'm going to quiz you, Dad, is a Hall of Fame shortstop with a great nickname. Arguably one of the best shortstops to ever play the game. The
Wizard.
The Wizard of Oz. Ozzie Smith, the Wizard of Oz. Good job, Dad. Okay, we move on to my outfield. Jesus Alou.
Right.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
There you go. I love
Jesus
it.
Christ Superstar.
We've used Jesus Alou, thanks to Dan Patrick, like 20 times on the podcast the last 2 years.
Also in the outfield, Billy Hamilton.
Right.
And then this one's stretch. Greasy Neal. Are you familiar? He played for the Reds 1915 to 1922. Grease.
His name is Grease Neal?
Greasy Neal.
Greasy Neal.
So Grease, the musical.
Right.
And then
Grease is the word, Jeff.
My pitcher played for the Twins and others, 2019 to 2022. Sean Poppin. Mary Poppins.
Right.
Little bit of a stretch, but that is my all-theater production team, Dad.
Jeff, I'm very proud of you for coming up with this.
I would love...
Now, where did you get the names from? Did you just Google, is there a baseball player named Grease? How did you do that?
Yeah. Honestly, I thought of a musical first, and then so I looked for Birdie, right? And then I tagged on Bye Bye Birdie.
Right.
The Wizard of Oz.
Birdie Tebbets makes it.
I started with Ozzie Smith. I said the Wizard of Oz. That makes sense.
Right.
And then George Brett. Sundays in the Park with George Brett. That came pretty quickly.
Right.
And then Billy Hamilton, who I know. So
it's so good.
And Billy Hamilton kind of. Too, because there's musicals that have...
Right, and on this date, Lou Brock broke the unofficial all-time stolen base record held by Billy Hamilton. How about that? So there are two Billy Hamiltons.
Yes.
This one played in the 1800s, Sliding Billy Hamilton. We just don't have nicknames like that anymore, Jeff. But the other Billy Hamilton is been active in the big leagues in the last few years. So, yes, on this day, it's an unofficial record because the stolen bases back then were not clear because he really broke the record held by Ty Cobb. And then Lou Brock, of course, was passed by
Ricky Henderson.
Way to go.
What did Ricky Henderson say on base? He had a whole speech planned, and what did he say instead?
Yeah, he and Lou Brock wrote a speech. And Ricky was supposed to pull it out of his back pocket and read the speech. And instead, and I love Ricky, what a great player he was. He held the base above his head and said, "Today I am the greatest of all time," which he was. And Lou Brock loved Ricky Henderson. They became really good friends. But Lou Brock said, "Ricky, what about the speech?" So when he called him after the game, Ricky said, "Sorry, I forgot."
Amazing. Tomorrow on the podcast, Kevin Brown, broadcaster for the Baltimore Orioles, Syracuse graduate. Love
and
that.
Jeopardy well, soon to be Jeopardy champion.
I think
We are going to get him a spot on the Celebrity Jeopardy show.
I think we need to do that. And his impression of Jim Palmer, incredible. If you missed our interview with Jim Palmer, you can look it up on the feed because it's gonna help you even more if you don't know Jim Palmer's isms.
All right, and we're just going to tease. There's a quirkgen in it, and it's a name quirkgen that is impossible to believe that Kevin Brown and I share. There's a name. It's like a quirkgen, but it has nothing to do with baseball except for both of us are in the game.
So perfect. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you again for being a part of our family.